Okay, welcome to another episode of Miracle Mindset for Men. I'm your host, Heyru J, aka Dre, aka Handsome Heyru. Tonight I have a very special guest this evening. I want to introduce the good brother, Mr. Blue Pillar. How you doing today, brother?
Doing amazing in yourself, good brother.
I'm doing pretty good. So today's episode is titled Developing Role Models. I just want to give like a little quick backstory about how
Yeah.
this came about and how this platform came about. So there was a story that I was reading earlier this year about a guy in my city because I live in Detroit, Michigan. In
hmm
my city, he took his ex girlfriend's life because she didn't want to be with him anymore, and she was a mother of two kids and stuff like that. So they just gave like kind of like the base of the story. They didn't like go into detail or of what really happened, but they just know that he was tried for murdering his ex girlfriend.
hmm
So when I was reading the story, he was a young black man. He had to be about a year or two younger than me, and I was just thinking like, we need to understand that we have to be able to let go of things that's not for us or somebody who doesn't want to be with us anymore. We have to learn how to take control of our own emotions and not let our emotions create consequences, not for ourselves, but for the person who we're actually doing the deeds to and the people that is affected by the deeds that we're doing, and a lot of things has happened even before that with me personally, to where like I've been in a similar situation because I went through a bad breakup, and it caused a major depression for me, and I just had to pray about it, get with the ancestors, and just speak about it and just try to become a better man and
Yes.
things like that. So that's when I found Rich Show, and I started listening to the speakers like you, Red, KT, Dr. B, Dr. Phil Valentine, just to name a few. And I started taking the the workshops. Like Blueprint for God Power was definitely a pivotal workshop for me in my life, and it
Yes.
changed for the best. So I remember talking to Rich at the gathering of the masters, and he was telling me like, you got a voice. Why don't you go out there and speak your truth and try to help those people? Like you're not afraid to get out on the platform and talk about what you need to talk about. So you should do it.
Right.
So I took that advice, and then King Simon kind of like sealed the deal for me, and so it brought me here. So um my main objective with this whole platform is to help men help themselves, and particularly the black man, because we did have the highest suicide rate last year. I don't know what the rate is this year. I haven't checked the statistics, but we're going through a lot of depression, a lot of self worthlessness, not feeling like we're loved by our own people, our own peers, our own women, and then a system that was created to keep us down or keep us irrelevant and things like that. And I just kind of want to like shed light on that and be more of a mouthpiece and a open shoulder and a listening ear for those men who really need help in any way that I could lend my help to.
Yes, sir.
So developing role models. We don't have many role models out there. We have some, but we don't have enough. And the young kids nowadays, they are taking in so much information, like with the music. They're taking in information with TV, the Instagram and Facebook and things like that. And it's like it's not a lot of positive messages out there. Like we have some for sure, but they're being overshadowed by the negative thing. So in your perspective and in what you've seen, can you expound on why we're lacking so many role models in today's time?
Um, there was, major generational gaps took place, right? Like my generation, we there was an entire population that was eradicated, and prior to members of my generation being eradicated, this was the first generation that I ever saw that went against the generation over them. Um,
Mhm.
they turned them to customers. This was during the twilight of the late 70s and the early 80s when young men were dealing with the same level of depression and despair that you're speaking of.
Mhm.
Economically in urban settings across this country, in the post riot world, post 1968, there was 13 main melanated cities that went up in flames after MLK got assassinated, and they didn't put economic redevelopment back into those areas, and then a lot of social programs started kicking in. So the financial crunch was really hitting in the late 70s and the early 90s, and that's when they introduced narcotics into the community. And a lot of young men took that particular route. They took that avenue. This was an opportunity for them to touch bread that had never been accessible to them. And a lot of them threw morality out of the window and just ran for the bag. So they crossed the line that had never been crossed. No generation punched up. You know what I'm saying? If anything, generations was always punching down. It was always the elders that was pushing back on the youth, saying you can't do this or you can't do that. They was always concerned with being overtaken by youth. For the very first time, we seen the youth punching up, and they was knocking out their elders, lit like figuratively and literally. These are the things that I saw growing up.
Mhm.
A lot of it was an expression of the internal pain that these young men had. My generation also was the first generation of latchkey children. Um, so this was the generation that started being impacted by having lack of two-parent households, where it started becoming more of the rule rather than the exception. That happened during my generation of my lifetime. Prior to that, like in the 50s and even in the 60s, that wasn't a commonplace thing in quote unquote Black America. We had double family households where, you know what I'm saying, there was economic support and everything. The social programs don't kick in until the mid 60s and the late 60s, after these assassinations. And then they had social programs, the Great Society Act, where for the women to receive certain benefits, a man couldn't be in a home, right? These young men had a level of angst and anger that they were expressing that had never been seen, and they push back. And often when you push hard enough, things get broken. So society became broken and rather dysfunctional. Um, so the removal or the decimation of an entire top layer, melanated men with no fathers, uncles, or grandfathers, right? So no role models. And then you are in a depressed area dealing with despair and depression. The your environment is not helping because now it's looking dilapidated. That has a very deep effect on a person's mental. You know what I'm saying? Your surroundings
Mhm.
is informing to you daily, fight or flight, spiking cortisol, right? Creating a stressful environment in your body. And the thing about our quantum mechanics, our melanin, it
Mhm.
falls to pieces under the wrong type of pressure. Under the right amount of pressure, it reacts almost like vibranium and kicks into like super gear. But under oxidative stress, it breaks down. You know what I'm saying? Environmental
Yeah.
factors that go into that, like contaminants and carcinogens and all of this crazy stuff that they expose us to, lead in the paint, bad water, bad air, and then you overstressed. Nah,
Yeah.
that don't work well with melanin. So our environment started reflecting that, and we started reflecting our environment because we're also tethered to it. And then yeah, it was just a societal, I call it colony collapse.
Okay.
When you take those layers out, you know what I'm saying? You're gonna have some pretty disastrous effects. And we're just responding to a lot of the effects that we see from them removing, you know, um, a layer of a generation and then the respect, you know what I'm saying, of whatever was left over. You know what I mean? So when men stop looking at men that are older than them respectfully, like fuck that nigga. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You just got a whole throw. Now you got a throwaway for the ones that are left. They throwaway culture. Oh, that nigga don't do nothing but hold the store up. He's a drunk. He's a wino. There's nothing I can learn from him. He can't show me no direction. So homie on the block getting the bread, you know what I'm saying, with them shiny wheels, he becomes the role model because somehow he's figured it out. You know what I'm saying? He knows how to get to a dollar. He has the things that these young men desire in terms of what they can equate to freedom. Because integration just kicks in as well. So now there's no more barriers. Now we're being led to believe that there is an illusion of inclusion, and everything is all of the playing field is set. You could cross the tracks, and you got just as much opportunity as white America has, and you've never had this opportunity before. Now they dangling this carrot in your face and telling you that you could get bread, and yeah, you might have been led into a burning house, but you still want to watch the TV in the burning house because you've been looking outside the window of that TV for so long that you don't care if the house is burning or not. You
Mm-hmm.
let the fire out just to watch the TV. And I'm speaking in allegory and stuff, but this is kind of like really what happened. Our priority shifted, and we started going for the exception rather than the rule, and looking for places for inspiration that previously we never looked towards. You know what I'm saying? And it just became a culture because other people started understanding that there was a lot of benefits to this because it was part of their longer, more protracted agenda of breaking up our quote unquote family to settle in that final layer of dysfunction, which they couldn't penetrate through warfare, through separation, through segregation, through anything else. Our unit remains strong. I mean, think about this, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The resilience that melanated peoples in particular have to have post slavery. And I know what people be out there saying about whether it existed or not. And that's neither here nor there. For the conditions that we hear about, right? For melanated men to still stick by women in those conditions, you know what she going in Master House doing. You know how they passing her around. You know what they doing. She got this, she got that. These men in all those conditions still stuck by these women. These men still came back to them plantations to get those women.
Yep.
These men, regardless of what the migratory issues was, or you got to split a penny in half, or you got to share, they still made sure that those women was fed and them children was fed. Even if daddy was a rolling stone, he still managed to take care of two or three homes,
Yep.
attempting to juggle them before he totally caved in. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I know crackheads that been together for 30 plus years, bro. Right? Where dude refuses to leave her. It's just something was in us. We're
Yeah.
down for one another in a way that was unprecedented. You feel what I'm saying? So yeah, man, we kind of just we fell for the trick, we fell for the trap. And I think because we're so magnetized by entertainment, once it seeps into the culture, and once we're being informed that this is what it is, and this is the wind is blowing this way, and we're gonna shift with it. You know what I'm saying? It just went that way. And let me just land my plane and say this: like my father would always tell me the story about they went in to the movie theater to see Superfly, and they went in. They had dashikis and afros. He said they came out with butterfly collars and conchs, and that pretty much sums it up. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It was big media, it was Hollywood, it was part of an agenda, but the shit worked like that.
Yeah. You mentioned something, and I was thinking about it when you was talking about how the kids will, idolize like the men out here get money, and they would like disregard like the older people because they feel like you're not doing what he's doing, so I'm gonna follow what he doing. Remind me of New Jack City. Remember when Wesley Snipes was the big time drug dealer?
Mm-hmm.
And you remember the old guy was trying to tell him like you killing your own people with the product and stuff. He said, "Well, look around, oh man, what are you doing? Going around just telling this and telling that, and you were drunk, but at least I'm putting food on the table, and and everybody see nothing but happiness and stuff like that. But you just going around just like saying you shouldn't do this and do that, but you ain't showing no result." He said, even if I am doing that, at least I'm giving the kids a look to look up to something, even though it was in a negative connotation. But and it just made me think like even when you said like they put stuff in movies, and not saying that didn't happen because I'm pretty sure that happened in the '80s. I wasn't born in the '80s, but my parents grew up in the '80s, so they tell me stories about what was
Yeah.
going on.
It happened in
And
this. It happened in this. Black exploitation movies for the most part happened in the 70s, and then
mm,
we lived through the effects of those movies through the 80s. Once
mm,
the young men who were in the audience started imitating the caricatures that they saw, societal breakdown started happening after that in the 80s. Once these young men make decisions to take penitentiary chances to get the things that they was enticed by on the silver screen. It's just what happened. You know, where you from is a perfect example. Detroit,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
the the,
yeah.
the blue collar mecca. You know, where melanated men was respected for the work that they put in initially. You know what I'm
The,
saying?
the factories, the big three that was here. Yep.
We was known for industry. We was known for what we did. You know, by transforming city. You know, through workforce labor. You know, our ability to put that work in. That was frowned upon by the children of those hard workers that seen their parents come home broken down. You know what I'm saying? And it
Mhm.
just wasn't something that we saluted the way that we should have. We didn't gravitate towards it to say, "Oh, that's heroic. I want to grow up and do that. I want to fill his spot on the assembly line." Nah, nah. Now when the option was, you know what I'm saying, you could move this work
Yeah, and get faster money, and
and
you and
get fly.
right, and had a glamorous life, the nice trucks and the big house and the
Yeah,
gold chains and things like that.
the women,
Then the women, yeah, for sure, yeah, yeah,
you know, and your own selection. You know what I'm saying? Because it's Detroit, so the playalistic energy is in a blood,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like, yeah, when you given an opportunity to live that out, you know what I'm saying? To actually go and get that, yeah, many people they hopped at that opportunity, and I be wanting to make the example so it could be real clear and concise because there are mental devices that are involved when men make a decision to cross the line to say, I'm gonna pick a piece of work up and I'm gonna become a hustler. You automatically have crossed the line where it's you against the world, it's you against your community, it's you against your people.
yep,
Only niggas in your crew is the people that you could trust. So there's no more brotherhood.
yep,
It's fucking individualism to a degree. This, this mind boggling. I gotta get mine, you gotta get yours. So you can't build community with that. You know what I'm saying? You can't flourish like that. That person can't come back around with a straight face and talk about let's build. No, that person has permanently taken themselves out of the conversation. You know what I'm saying? And the arrogance of it all, it's like even to this day, they won't come back and atone for it. So when you start chipping away like that, you know what I mean? And that becomes the role model,
yep, yep,
right? And this person has no intention whatsoever on showing any trace of leadership outside of the capitalistic endeavors of ill-gotten gain. I'm gonna show you how to churn, you know what I'm saying? Make a dollar out of 15 cents. That's capitalism, right? You need that, like Nino Brown was saying, for the most part, to survive in a capitalist society. You know what I'm saying? If you want to be a
mhm,
boss and not a worker per se, but that's that doesn't speak to again who we were as a people. And I ain't speaking about 1,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, 300 years ago. I'm talking about just 100 years ago with all of these melanated black inventors, all of these entrepreneurs. You know what I'm saying? There was 13 different Black Wall Streets just in Oklahoma alone.
Yep.
Just in Oklahoma. Where did these men and these women who allegedly came straight out of slavery? Because the way that it's told to me, and I had did a whole lecture and research paper on this, because it ain't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
I had researched on Black Wall Street, and they told me, they said, oh, those people were the slaves that came on the Trail of Tears with Indians that were driven from North Georgia, Tennessee, and Mississippi, right? Because they found gold in the mountains out here. So they ran the people off the land, and they said that those was tribes, and those tribes had slaves, and they had the slaves walk to Indian country, which was called Oklahoma, barefoot. And when they get there, they run them from one land to another land that they allegedly thought was barren land. Come to find out, the land is oil rich. So our people had providence. They were
Mm-hmm.
driven somewhere that was even greater from the place that they were at. You know what I'm saying? And then
Yeah.
people came up, but no one ever explains, well, how did they become titans and tycoons and industry giants and the best in their class 15, 20, or 30 years removed from slavery? What school did they go to? What degrees did they get? Right? Where did the professionalism kick in for these people to be the top avant-garde in their field in the country in this small community? I'll wait. And no one has ever explained this to me. And I'm like, this is the illest example ever of pull yourself up by the bootstraps. These are the prototypical American patriots, if you will, bar none, right? No one personifies Americanism more than these individuals who are not being celebrated. We're not even celebrating them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's who we are. That's who we were. If that's who we were, then that's who we are. Where is it at? We so our failure to make idols, our failure to make role models, our failure to make heroes out of the people who we have access to. We can make heroes out of whoever we choose to.
Right.
But we so used to them making the heroes for us, packaging and presenting and polishing our heroes and telling us who's worthy of our acknowledgement, who's worthy of our our research study and quote unquote, I don't want to say mimicking, but it's like, yeah, this is a branch that you need to graft from and build from. We haven't done that for ourselves.
And, you mentioned something important, and I talked to Rich about this. Like he was one of the first people on my show. I
Mhm.
mentioned brotherhood, and I said that we need that because we're lacking that hard. And what made me come to that conclusion, I saw this movie called The Forge. I don't know if you heard of it, but it's on Netflix.
Okay.
And it's a real good movie. You ever get a chance, like check
Yeah.
it out. I think
I-
it's a real good message in it. But The Forge, to make the long story short, is about a guy who grew up without his father. And they were like, his mother was very like into Jesus Christ or whatever. And she told her son that he had to go get a job because all he was doing was playing basketball. He wasn't being responsible. So he went and got a job at like some it's like a training facility where like they ship equipment. And
Okay.
so the owner gave him a job, and at first the kid was reluctant to take it because he had disrespected him at first. So he thought he wasn't gonna get the job. So the guy said, "I give you the job, but you have to stop by after work every day while you're working here, and I'm going to mentor you." So time went on. He started mentoring him, and it changed the kid's life. And he became a better man. So the forge, they called it the forge because it was a brotherhood to where each elder or mentor would take in a young man, and then they would like take him under their wing and show him like how to deal with life, how to deal with business, and how to deal with all of that stuff. And I was thinking like, dang, we don't have brotherhoods. I don't hear too much about brotherhoods. I know the NOI got their brotherhood. You got the Hebrew Israelites, they got their brotherhood and stuff like that. But we don't have like a brotherhood like just from all different types of people, like all walks of life to come together and mentor each other, whether you are 50, 40, 20, 30, whatever the case may be.
Right.
And I was saying that in this brotherhood, you just can't have anybody in there. And I relate to the three R's. They have to be respectable, responsible, and righteous. Because you have brotherhoods out here, but they're not the brotherhood to where like they're conveying positive messages to try to create strong men for our community and to be considered role models and idols to younger black kids to look up to. Like, I want to be like that when I grow up. And I respect the NOI so much because even though I don't like follow like exactly their rituals or routines or whatever, but
Mhm.
how they present themselves, how they speak, how they sit up, how they respect each other and everybody else, I take all of that in because that's something I want to apply to my life. So when I have kids, when I have a son or a daughter, I would teach those same morals, principles, and values and stuff like that. And I think that's the part where we're lacking because everybody's out for self. And the whole it takes a village to raise kids, that's out the window now. People don't want you raising their kids or helping. They like, I'm gonna do whatever I want. And unfortunately, it has come to a point to where there's so many single mothers out there. They don't want nobody helping raising their kids. And I'm not saying all of them, because you do have some who like, I'm gonna go take him to his uncle, or I got a good male friend or his grandfather, whatever, to take him under his wing, because I don't want my son to be out in the streets and doing this and doing that. But it's becoming more and more difficult for young black men to have positive role models when the role models that is presented in front of us are drug dealers, rappers, entertainers, and we look into them because we see, the glitter and glamour stuff. Like, oh, so if I do this, I can get that. But what are they doing for their community? Like, what positive messages are they presenting in these movies that they're displaying? You know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
like you said before, like Superfly was a prime example. Like, everybody go see Superfly. Like, the dude was a pimp. All he was worried about was getting his money and having all the women and looking good. You know what I'm saying? And the same thing like Dynamite. I think it was Dynamite, the movie that Eddie Murphy had remade. Same thing. And it's like, and you're right. It did start in the '70s, and it 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 like shifted into the '80s and somewhat of the '90s and stuff like that. So it's a lot, but I don't give up on our people because I still feel like they can still be programmed. It may be more of a challenge to try to reprogram them to do things that would be conducive and righteous for their own community, because music is powerful. Entertainment is powerful. And when you got people like Young Thug who say we don't care about what's going on with these kids, let the police and the system and all them handle that. Like, you got kids looking up to you. So if they hear you saying that, they're gonna repeat that. And then they're gonna pass on that generational curse or that generational ignorance about not caring about what's going on in your own community, who these are the same people who are supporting you, and you saying things like that. It's a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
So I just feel like brotherhood is very important. Like, I
yeah.
want to.
I absolutely agree. You know.
I think a brotherhood needs to be started. I've been trying to work on getting a brotherhood together. Like, form a community to where like have an outlet for men who are going through things. And there are some out there because I'm part of one on the Facebook group, and it's called Black Men's Mental Health Society.
Yes.
And I was on a Zoom call about a month ago, and there was about 70 of us on here. And like about three or four of the guys were like telling their stories about what was going on in their life, and they would like break down crying because they felt like it was so much pressure on them as a black man, not just from society but from their own spouse. and they just feel like they're not worthy enough because their spouse doesn't make them feel like they're doing a good job, and they're not. And I believe that men, we like to seek validation from our women because it gives us that drive. Like when a woman say I'm proud of you, like when my mom says she's proud of me, that makes me feel good, make me want to keep doing more, you
I,
know.
myself included.
So it's like we don't have that. So if you in a brotherhood and you saying, look, I'm proud of you, like you come a long way, keep doing what you're doing, and you got my full support. We don't hear enough of that. And it's a message that's not being conveyed, and that's the message that I'm trying to put out there, is that I want to tell all the black men out there, I'm proud of you because you made it this far. Keep going. you know there's nothing stopping you. We're like what, a pressure code. Like when we under pressure, we turn in a diamond, we shine. And that's been shown for the last 50, 60 years. that
Well, yeah, some of us do,
well,
and again,
yes.
yeah, but we're watching the cracks, so we can't say, it bust. We're watching bust pipes. We're watching, water main breaks, and we can't
Hmm.
ignore that because some of those water main breaks were main um, repositories for role modeling, like somebody like Puff, right? you
Yeah.
know, and I remember like in the late '90s, I remember different different impacts on what we could consider the quote unquote culture. You know what I'm saying? And how some of that stuff impacted my decision making. You know, because these were very impactful people on the way that the culture moved. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And it's like is directly taking direction, is vicariously taking direction, but these people were still in position that they were able to mold and shape and move culture in a way in which the melanated minds, the most powerful minds on the planet, were following behind these people and taking cues from them. And I'm just being honest. Like I said, I remember times in my own life where I was impacted by that. So yeah, and so in hindsight, I would have to look at, even what this individual is going through, a lot of information is coming out, and you'd be like, yeah, we it was the blind following the blind, and
Hmm.
we can't ignore that because again, you will want to identify what the problem is in order to diagnose a solution. So a lot of what we see is a little bit off in the community, in the world that we belong to. A lot of it stems from this stuff, so we can't ignore it when it's showing itself in every way possible. Like, yo, this is what dysfunction looks like. You know what I'm saying? You was drinking out of a cesspool. You know, the
Yeah.
that you was drinking out of was poison. So you might want to check yourself if this was the person that was programming you for 30 years. And yeah, so at the same time, while I feel encouraged for brothers and I'm telling them to go on, black men need to do a self audit, and really a mental health self audit, because it's a lot of shit that's lingering in there. You know what I'm saying? That you gotta face your shadows.
Yeah.
Black men is dealing with a lot of necessary shadow work. And this is stuff that we didn't catch in the 60s and the 70s. And let me tell you, out of 10 women that I meet, 8 of them have been molested by
Wow.
somebody directly in their family. So there's a lot of dirty niggas coming up. Um, and so I'm talking about 80s, 90s. So these dirty niggas from the 60s, 70s who probably got introduced to some dirty shit prior to that,
Right.
right? Who have not dealt, they got away with proverbial murder, if you will. Some of them have already checked up out of here and probably reincarnated as roaches,
Hmm.
right? For some of the horrendous things that they have done to other human beings, right? In secrecy. You feel me? But we're living with it out loud because the results of it is running around in our community. They're the mamas, they're the glam mamas. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
People that are magnetizing other people to trauma bond with them and they're creating generational trauma, tribes and what have you. So I've been incarcerated. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I know what the face of man looks like when no one's watching,
Mm-hmm.
right? I really know what mental health and melanated men looks like when you lose it.
Yeah.
It's not to be ignored, and we can't just hum it away or kumbaya. We can't bring the sound bowls out. That's not going to chase them demons out. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Melanated men need to do some serious soul searching and atonement for the shit that they participated in. There was nothing less of blood soul contracts with demonic forces for them to separate themselves from community so they could get a slice of devil's pie. I'm just sorry that I'm just saying that this is just the reality of the situation. And what we're dealing with now, what we're looking at is community colony collapse that comes after that. And we are attempting to pick up the pieces, but all of the pieces on the floor is broken glass. So we just gonna cut ourselves trying to pick these pieces up without putting the gloves on and knowing how to deal with toxic matter. You feel me? They can
Mm-hmm.
cut you and harm you because this shit, you can't hug it away, you can't hum it away, you can't sing it away. You got to get these niggas 20 grams and they got to go somewhere and cry and be honest about the pain, the real pain that they're experiencing that they've glossed over, right?
Mm-hmm.
The reality of what it feels like to grow up rejected as a person, as a species. Yo, when I was growing up, they used to have commercials talking about we was endangered species.
With black people, black men were endangered
Yeah.
species.
Black men in the 90s, they was running commercials. So you would see a commercial that was like save the whales and gorillas are gonna die in the Congo. And then it'd be like black men, an endangered species. What can we, bro? This was the programming that I was exposed to.
So
So
you think that was purposely? You think that was
absolutely,
purposely?
absolutely.
What shit? We in danger because they the one who's making it that way. Fuck.
My society, my generation became a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Uh-huh.
Saying I grew up, I mean, I grew up very well educated on the things that Europeans have done to eradicate and erase us. And then I grew up and I had my own experience about the things that our own people was willing to do because they got downloaded with that program and they fell into self-hatred. So I grew up in a generation when they said it was gonna be self-destruction and we was like, what you talking about? And then here we are
Mm,
in this self-destruction. It's like I could give you the gap, but if you blow your brains out, they're gonna call that a suicide. And
right.
I'm not gonna get blamed for it. Even if I was whispering in your ear, that man tell no tales. So we're doing the job for them. We became the self-fulfilling prophecy of being an endangered species. You know what I'm saying? It's us taking us out to the degree that I see. Now I know about the things that's systemic. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like the clan ain't running down in my hood. You know what I'm saying? Mowing people down with choppers. That's the
Nope.
Hopies in them.
Yep.
The my nan and them is not concerned about safety in their hood because of white men in hoods. It's the homies in them. You know
Yep.
what I'm saying? With that white rock. So
Yep.
I know how it started. I know again, but I know what the options are. I know what the options were, and I also know it's participatory that you have to make a decision to participate.
Yeah.
I was surrounded by poison. You know what I'm saying? I got access to it to this day. Right? It's a conscious decision not to participate. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
something that you got to have in you, regardless of what factors that you might be up against. And we just talking about what the temperature is. Oh, the system did this and the system. All right, so the system made it like it was a hot sauna. Granted, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, you ain't had to get butt ass though. That you know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
Like, yeah. So what? They turned it up. You're still supposed to be cool as cucumber skin, even in the midst of all of that. you don't divorce yourself from your ethics and your morals once again to play the devil's to you dancing with the devil with two suede shoes, and then you want to slice of the devil's pie. Don't cry about it.
Yeah.
And so again, we're dealing with colony collapse and all of the effects to go along with it. And I could go through the whole list of what it looks like.
So let me ask you something. You have kids, right?
I don't.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Um,
Nephews, yes.
nephews, okay. So you were talking about us making the conscious decision to not do those things or participate. When you have like your nephews and stuff, do you like sit them down and have conversations with them about what's going on out here? Like, hey, if you make these decisions, this is where your life could go in a bad way. If you made these decisions, this is where your life can go in a good way.
Absolutely. But again, in their lives, I lead as a role model. I show them rather than telling them what the alternatives are, what they look like. You know what I'm saying? I introduce them to a world of alternatives rather than just giving them this because they seeing the other stuff in 3D all day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I had to I had to participate in creating a world that I could show them that exists where there was alternatives because it didn't exist for my generation wholesale per se. I had a great example in my father, um, and I just thought that he was so cool that the shit that he thought was cool, I thought was cool, and I never wavered from that. So
Hmm.
that was his strong magnetic hold on my mind made me make certain decisions and not make some of the bad decisions because I knew that it would never sit well with him. He had
Right.
already expressed to me that he would take my life if I was to sell narcotics,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
believed him. So that he planted a seed that was effective. That he didn't have to go back and keep watering the seed. He didn't have to go back and keep checking the seed. All he had to do was plant it, and I had a healthy amount of fear for him. It wasn't dysfunctional fear. It wasn't fear because he be whooping on me. It's fear because I seen his hands before,
Mhm.
and I just ain't want that.
Right.
I felt yeah like at a disadvantage, and I'm just like, and Pernell Whitaker and all of like he just boxing was his thing,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and I just did not want them hands.
Right. I know, man. Listen, I know.
I
I
ain't
know
want
what
to
you
stand
mean.
for it. I was like, yo, that was good enough of a deterrent to be like, because I'm like, he's gonna beat me to death. It's gonna be the hands. Like, I ain't want that, bro. I didn't want to teeter on those lines.
Hmm.
That was enough for me to be like, nah, son. And I'm walking away from racks on racks on racks because I seen, you know what I mean. I seen it. I know what this shit. You know what I mean.
Hmm. But you respected your
I
father
know
so
what it was
much.
for. Yeah, I know what
Yeah.
I got. I could have totally got to it in the illest of ways. You know what I mean? I've been around it, and I was like, nah,
So,
son,
so you ever think back like, what if I would have made those decisions? How my life would have turned out?
absolutely, all the time.
Man.
I would have been washed up.
And
My,
it's things like that. And I would tell some of my friends like, we have to be tested to see how strong our character is, and we have to be tested to see how strong the discipline that was instilled in us as kids growing up, because sometimes what you're being taught by your parents can be overshadowed by what you're seeing from your peers.
absolutely,
And it's like now you have to make a decision. The respect love you have for your parents, like you don't want to disappoint them, or you don't want to get hands right, or you want to take that chance and do what your peers are doing, which may have you end up in an even worse situation. Like you can probably end up doing a bid 15, 20 to life, or you could be dead, or you
yeah,
be strung out.
yeah,
And
and not to take nothing from my friends and those models that I was making observations of, but I also noticed that they didn't have fathers. They didn't have that guidance, and they always wanted that.
Mhm.
I mean, because they would always speak to me about how privileged we were, and yo, man, if I could, if I could take all this money, what would I buy? And those are the things that they wanted. They didn't want materials; they wanted a family, and I thought that was deep. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just like, my young brothers don't have that other voice in their ear. They don't have that deterrent, and they in pain because they watching their mama try to hold this shit together. And it's
Yeah.
time for them to be the men of the house, even if they're, you know what I'm saying, of juvenile ages, and then they got this opportunity that they see other people get into. And to their credit, like, because some of this stuff was before 1995, like it wasn't the same penalties. They didn't see people getting football numbers and things of that nature. So some of the risks, even though the risks outweighed the reward was a little bit more attractive,
Mhm.
especially when you need it's right there, and there's no other alternative. You in school and they talking about going to postgraduate, and you ain't gonna get the six figures until 8 years after going it. The niggas is like, nah,
Yeah, I want that now.
I need that now. Like,
Yeah.
so again, I observed, I seen I know the conditions, I know the pressures, I know the levers, I know a lot of what went into the decision making. You know what I'm saying? So I have a lot of grace with my generation and my brothers and everything, but it don't change the outcome. It don't change the facts. So I'm also upset with a lot of them because they're no longer here,
Mhm.
and they got set up for gentrification. I seen whole communities get taken as a result of you know the game that they participated in. They did the man's dirty work. You know what I'm saying? They did his grudge work. They they brought down property prices, and you know for them saying they made the community less safe for their mamas and their nanas, and they was doing it to get their mamas and their nanas in a better position.
Mhm.
So it was just a bad deal, and so we have a lack of role models once again because the exception became the rule, and the exception in our community was always the nigga. That was always the exception.
Mhm.
The rule was the working man, the provider. You know what I'm saying? The person with the vision, the revolutionary. That became, and then he becomes the exception. So yeah, we got a lack of models. We need to remodel our role model machine because then when I'm growing up, the people who you would think was qualified to be that, they publicly like, I don't want to be that. Now for real, like, and we can say, yeah, like entertainers and athletes, regardless. Michael Jordan was one of the biggest
Idols in the 90s, 80s and 90s, man.
idols that was doing. He was defying the odds. He was doing almost superhuman ish when they was telling us we wasn't ish.
Right.
And you not worthy, and you this, and you like, nah, like I'm special, like homie. Maybe
Mhm.
not all the way there yet, but I know I got something in me that can rise to them levels. I got something in me that if you give certain time and attention to it, it'll come to the forefront. Like I believe I believe I might. They had a whole campaign for it, bro.
Mhm.
And then some was like, I don't want to be that. I ain't that. Like
Yeah.
them little niggas.
Yeah, yeah. That will fuck you up. Like the nigga you want to be like I ain't trying to be this for y'all. I'm doing this for the love of the sport.
Yeah, yeah, those things hurt. You know what I'm saying? Because again, these young men, these young brothers, they really needed some. They needed to see somebody that cared enough that in replace of their biological fathers that didn't bother, or so they felt. I even met Jordan at a Jordan Classic, and he was very uninviting, like
Mhm.
very uninviting. Like he was there with a pink toe, a blonde. He
Mhm.
wasn't trying to hear nothing from nobody, son. Cause I was like, damn, all the rumors I heard was true. It hurt. It hurt. I didn't wear Jordans after that or none of that.
Wow. Mm. So before I get to my next question, we were talking about um, you know, colony collapse and things like that. Brothers taking other brothers out. A very good read that I have came across that I really, really found interesting because I'm like a big, big psych, it's like psychology and stuff like that. I'm really big into that. Came across ISIS papers,
Yes,
and I got the book,
the Bible.
and it was so, how can I put it? It was so eye opening to where that a lot of these things, what is going on in real time when she wrote this back in the 70s, has manifested itself in the last 50 years. And she was talking about the linear thought that you put certain things in a person's face and they're going to repeat it. They're going to repeat what they see because they're not taught any other way.
Hmm.
And she's talking about I think it was the nuclear thought, where you see things but you have your own critical thinking, and you say, well, what if I tried a different way and then see what my results come to, as opposed to doing it to everybody else's way, because at least I have a mind of my own. And those are the people where we consider the black sheep, because they don't follow the herd. So I just thought that was like a very interesting book to read, because like reading that and then seeing everything that's going on, because I love history too. And from when the time she wrote the book up until 2025, is like all of this stuff has manifested itself in real time. And it's like, how did you know? How did you know that? But I was reading the book, they have like techniques and certain brainwave patterns that they study about how things can potentially develop itself in the future, 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, these are predictive models.
Yeah.
Once
Like,
once you know the conditions, once you know the parameters, once you understand the play that's in motion, right?
mhm,
The results are predictable. You feel me? And that's what I'm saying. Like, I sat back and watched this stuff play out, and and the elders warned about it, and the elders said, "Yo, this is gonna happen if this happens," and then young people told them, "Shut the hell up," and
mhm,
it happened.
yeah,
And then they can't go back and apologize to them people. So that broke the bond and the trust that the youth had with the quote unquote elders, and the respect that the elders have for the youth to say they don't want to listen. The same thing that us as parents today are saying about the YNs and the youth.
yeah,
The same thing that my parents were saying about our generation.
yeah.
And they were right.
And it's a repetitive thing. Like, nobody, I'm not saying nobody, but not enough of us are breaking the generational curse and becoming a generational cure. And
Unfortunate. Yeah.
yeah, and and it's funny because you mentioned that, because me and my dad had gotten into like a little argument, because I'm the type of person, like, if I feel a way, or if I feel like I'm right in something, I'm gonna stand on business. And
Hmm.
I feel like, because if I feel like you're disrespecting me or you're doing something to me that I don't feel that's right to me, I'm not gonna be around you, and that's just how it is. And he was like, "Boy, y'all generation, y'all something else." And I said, "Well, you raised this generation. Like, y'all are the reason. Like, you raised us to be this way. I mean, whether you didn't watch us enough or you didn't, like, you know, sit us down and, like, because my father was never a talker. He was all about action. Everything I learned from him was about action. He didn't never sit me down and talk to me about nothing. My mama was the talker. My father was the disciplinarian, and all he did was show through action. So I learned a lot from him about what he did, not what he said. So, and he's a prime example that he came from a impoverished background, because his father wasn't around, and he grew up with two sisters. And he told himself, and this is go back to what you're saying about making a conscious decision to, I don't want to repeat that. I don't want my kids to grow up without a father like I did. Mother the same way. She didn't grow up with her father, and she made the conscious decision too, and said that I don't want my kids to live in a household where they're not two parents here.
Yeah.
And I commend them for that. And I tell them all the time, like, I'm really proud that y'all stuck it out for 36 years.
Wow. Yeah,
and
salute
you
to them, man.
and it's like because they both came from broken backgrounds, and you think that when two broken people come together it would break even more, but I'm pretty sure they had like their ups and downs and stuff like that, like any relationship and marriage go through. But for them to still stick it out for this long with 4 kids, and
Legend.
we all grown, and we are all doing pretty well for ourselves, and it's like
Salute
I'm
to them.
grateful for that.
Salute to them.
Yeah, appreciate it. So I just think that it's those things, like you made a very good point. Like you got to make the conscious decision to not want to join the narrative and be an exception to the rule.
Yeah.
Cause that could have went left. My father was out there selling drugs before I was born. Though this before I was born,
Hmm.
he was out there doing that. So his mother, which is my grandmother, she sent him to the military because she said that if he stayed in these streets, he gonna get himself killed.
Right.
So shout out to my grandma because she was like, I don't.
So grandma intervened, right? Grandma made
Hmm.
a OG decision to preserve the family line and not to make sure that y'all did not become statistically part of the generational curse.
Yep.
Shout out to grandma for making right a G decision. And yeah, man, these that one decision,
It could change a lot, and it has changed a lot. Cause ain't no telling what he would have been. I probably wouldn't even be here, to be honest with you.
like those decisions shift whole trajectories of timelines.
Hmm.
Um, and so we need to recognize and realize that, you know what I mean, that these are the things I consider to be divine interventions, you know, in real life without mystifying it. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? This is being touched by an angel, right? Like the nanas, the ones that put their foot down, and or the GPs, the grandpas, they'd be like, boy, if you don't, or like I said with my father planting that seed, you know what I'm saying? Your father being resilient enough and your mother to make those vows and keep them.
Hmm.
Right? I would ask you, if you haven't, please interview them at some point. Um, because, you know, melanated men's mental health definitely comes from them having to find a place for themselves in the world that they feel that they're not wanted. You know what I'm saying? And when that shit stems from home, and then you're getting all of the signals from society that to back that up and amplify it, can you imagine what that does to the mind? I can't. But I could look at the results. I could look around me and say, damn, that must be some unprecedented pressure. Does it qualify me not to be able to speak on it because I haven't gone through it? No, not necessarily. But I just feeling it,
Hmm.
just attempting to feel it, put a level of pressure on me where I'm like, oh man, bro.
Yeah, because you empathize and sympathize in the
Yeah,
situation.
right. So my empathy factor has my heart becoming so heavy to think on that level, right? That you have to have grace and sympathy with your brothers and sisters in the street that are going through that, because they have literally lived through that. They're living through it. And like I said, broken shards of glass, you know what I'm saying? Hurt people are bound to hurt people. So everyone is cutting on one another, you know what I'm saying? In
Hmm.
the name of healing, because, you know, have they done their own healing? What does that look like? How long does it look? Do you do it in private? You know what I'm saying? If you living out loud in public, is it going to relapse at some point? How do you know it's dealt with? You
That's
feel
true.
me? Can you heal where you hurt at? If it's part of your generational bloodline, like, do you got to be reincarnated and come back again to get it right? Can you do it in one lifetime? So these are a lot of different factors that we have to factor in, you know, when we are sitting in front of young men and young women that are grappling with mental health issues and they're looking for remedy there. And sometimes, sometimes they're just looking to be heard because listening is therapeutic. Listening is a catharsis. Listening sometimes, like I was thinking about this the other day. I was forget who I was having an interview with, but somebody was speaking to me about legacy, and I was like, oh, maybe it was King Simon. I was doing a keynote for King Simon,
Mm-hmm.
and Abundance Child was there. Shout out to Abundance Child, and these are people who I started my journey with, or parts of my journey that were very instrumental. They played a part in it, and I was noticing, and I was saying that just in my case, just like in a case, we could have been petty. You know what I'm saying? They because people be like, y'all are gatekeepers, and yeah, I'm like, even if I was right,
Yeah.
I feel that I was very diplomatic and democratic with the opening and the closing of gates, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't keep nobody out that I felt belonged in. If I kept if I closed the gate on someone, it was because they was a certified POS, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing the community a favor. So you would often get ridiculed to be like, oh, you've been in this for 30 years. You don't got as much money as this person, or you don't got as much bread as this. So, or you don't got as many views. They got all of these different metrics that they measure your impact by,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'd be like, if this was really about money, I said, I will never be compensated for the lives that I've saved. I was like, you know how many conversations that I have on the phone with young men when I literally speak them off of the edge because they're suicidal. That if I was billing for time or if there was recompense that came with that, like these are things that you'll never get paid for. These are things that you can't even speak about in public. This
Mm-hmm.
is you just got to take on the chest and just do your work
Yeah.
and make yourself available for the next person that needs you. This is a thankless job. You're not gonna strike it rich here. You shouldn't be coming here looking to get rich per se.
Mm-hmm.
Saying, and those shouldn't be the metrics that we utilize to measure one another's effectiveness or impact, right? Sometimes I got to get to the most lowliest of places to help people that got these situations, and I got to go to where they're at. You know what I'm saying? This stuff is not. It's not the prettiest of work. You know what I mean? And it's not something that people necessarily would volunteer to show up to do if they knew what it entailed.
This is true.
Because I mean talking literally talking people off of the ledge, literatively and figuratively. You know what I'm saying? At 3, 4, 5 in the morning, and people have reached their rope, and but sometimes they just need someone that's willing to listen.
Yep.
And I feel that I have honed that into a superpower. I was forced to listen because I be on programs with niggas that's long winded, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had to force myself to sit there and listen to a nigga talk for 2 hours straight before they let you get impressed. But it developed something in me that I was able to use as a superpower when I needed it the most.
Mm-hmm.
And when people are going through things, sometimes they just need to talk because they're sorting things out in midair. They're
Yep.
in flight, and shit is just mangled like this, and they're putting shit together, and don't stop them.
Yep. And
It might look like throw up.
that's what I learned in psychology. A lot of times when you're talking about the problem, you're finding a solution to the problem as you're talking. So you will want the person to keep talking because as they're still talking, they'll be like, you know what? Oh,
They
I
have
got
their
it.
eureka moment.
Mm-hmm.
So that part, right? And thank you for that. Let me give these people their own credit. Some of them have talked themselves off the ledge. I
Yeah.
just had to listen,
Mm-hmm.
right? And think about that. That's another aspect of mental health. If I can help you with anything, just to give you some insight, you know what I'm saying? These men are suffering from not being heard. These men are suffering from a world that's moving too fast to slow down enough to hear them. These men are suffering from me having to say something about what this man is saying is more important than what this man has to say, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
adding to his mental instability and fragility that he's like, God damn it. The people that I'm coming for therapy, these niggas even want to be heard. Where does my time come in?
Yeah. But
So,
I think that's a beautiful thing with human interaction though, is that sometimes they just need presence, especially when you feel alone. You just need somebody there. And sometimes you don't even want to speak. It's like it's been times to where like I want somebody here, but you don't even got to talk to me just to know that I'm not alone. And that could be enough for me because a lot of people do feel like they're alone. You know, even going down the spiritual journey, when I was told when you do this, it's a lonely path. You're gonna always feel alone. So just to have somebody who's on the same frequency as you or in the same type of path as you, just have them around to know that I'm not in this by myself.
yeah, not just alone, but scary,
Mm-hmm.
right? Some people go to very dark, desolate places with the information, and then you alone. You know what I'm saying? That's not the most healthiest environment for somebody to be in that
Yeah.
has mental breaks. You know what I mean? There's not 1,000% mentally sound, and I don't know who is these days in society, and I don't know why they would be. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
We are all experiencing some level of mental instability or something's always knocking at the door, proverbially speaking, of our our mental, of our minds. There's a lot going on. There's
Think
a
we're
lot
being overstimulated with a lot of things.
there's a lot of things running in the background. There's a lot of overstimulation.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that we are participating in right now and don't know. We're too close to it to see the effects of it. You know, like constant blue light exposure. You know what I mean? What that's doing, um, how that's destroying our circadian rhythm and our own biological clocks. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? Um, the dysfunction is taking place at a mitochondrial level with they call it noise. You would see it under an microscope, and it looks just like static. You know what I'm saying? Again, these are the conditions that break down melanin at a subatomic level. So we're being compromised, you know, by EMF frequencies and once again the air that we're breathing, the food that we're eating, you know, the blue light toxicity from the digital deluge, right? I got 4 devices around me right now. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They're
Yeah.
all giving off blue light with this light on top of it, where I should be submerged in darkness at this time for my melatonin to be kicking in and for my body's circadian rhythm to operate, for digestion to start, for all of these processes that I need to operate my body like a temple, like a factory, like an industry, like a power plant. You know what I'm saying? I cannot be playing these other people's games that have no respect for the circadian rhythm of our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So society is not teaching us how to live longer or to
Nope.
be healthy, you know
Nope.
what I'm saying, or to be optimal. It's not about that. So you got to find this information out for yourself. You got to have enough discipline to implement it. You got to
Mm-hmm.
have discipline to create a barrier around you where, you know, your discipline is not going to be interrupted. You got to protect your peace. You got to know what pieces you putting on the chessboard in terms of the people that you putting in your life,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because all of that is connected to your nervous system. You know, it's all part of your health. It's all going to lead to your mental health.
Yeah. Yeah, you are so right about that. And shout out to KT for the blue light glasses.
Shoot, my God, right?
Yeah.
Shout out
I
to
had bought these off him at the
the event.
what was it? The
Yeah,
event, yeah.
shout
Cause
out
he didn't have them.
to
And I was like, man, you got the glasses, the Tony Starks. These are Tony Starks. I said, I need them, man. He said, I'll bring them tomorrow. I said, bet. Man, I love these. Like every time I do my shows, I had these on.
them, right? Yeah, man.
Yeah, so
Blue
yeah,
lights.
shout out to KT. So before we get out of here, I want to ask this question. Before I ask this question, I do want to like give you your flowers too.
Thank you,
Okay,
bro.
Blue, I see you. I see you. Got the dark shades. I see you.
Yeah, now
Um,
he's got this company here. I met these brothers at InvestFest. They were inspired actually by KT. They heard his information years ago, and they ended up going into business and creating a whole blue light uh, line of glasses. But I don't got the name in front of me. My bad. I'm listening. Thank you, brother.
yeah, yeah, but I just want to, give you your flowers. I remember when I first met you was at the um high level conversations in
Yeah,
Detroit, and you was at the table and stuff. Like, then I finally get to meet Red and Blue. I seen him on Rich Show and stuff. I'm like, man, it was a surreal moment. And then I got to meet both of y'all again at
the
the
event.
mixtape, the mixtape joint, Kambada's album release.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shout
Cause
out
you
to
was serving the kill, and I didn't get a chance to get the food. I was like, oh no, I was like, I got to get some of that famous curry, that curry kale. I'm like, man. So then I got the chance to meet you again at the Gathering of the Masters, and I was like, hey, Blue, I need some of that. I need some of that kale. You know what I'm saying? So,
that
you know,
camera. Yeah.
I've listened to a lot of your videos and a lot of things I've learned from you, and I just want to say I thank you, and I really appreciate the information that you've given. And
Thank
you are one of the people who have helped me on my journey. In a lot of ways, I've even bought some of the gold water on your website
Thank you, brother.
and things like that. I'm a man who likes to support other men, especially black men out here who is trying to make a way for themselves and make a way for other black people. You
Yes.
know, and I feel like it's very important as black people we need to invest in our own community so we all strive. It's not like I'm
Yes.
buying your stuff and then you just strive, but
Right.
I'm striving too because you're giving me good product and I'm living longer and I'm being healthier and I'm helping you in a financial stance to keep expanding your production and distribution with your product and stuff. So, I'm really grateful and this is a surreal moment for me. Like this year alone, like all of the people I've talked to, from you, Rich, Black Dot, Q Reeves, oh man, the list goes on. King Simon,
Yes.
Minister Jew. Like I got a chance to talk to a lot of these men, so I'm like, and I got a chance to meet a lot of them too. So I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah. Ain't that
And
something?
I always tell all of them like I really appreciate all of y'all and the information that y'all have that has helped me personally to get me to where I am. Because if I had not come across Rich Show and heard y'all speakers, I wouldn't be here. I could say I would not be here. And I'm just grateful that I made the conscious decision to want to seek help.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I just want to say I appreciate you, man. I thank you for everything. But the last question, how would you develop a role model?
How would I develop one?
Mm-hmm.
Um. Again, I feel that it's imperative to know from that person if that's what their intentions are. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you can't make a role model out of someone who does not want to play that role. So finding someone that you feel embodies those principles, pouring into said individual, and then getting to know that person enough where really where their intentions are, and that they don't have any hidden agendas. Because I've been duped in this community by people who have initially expressed that they want to be role models, and then they got in position and they were very self-aggrandizing, and at the same time, we're expressing the fact that, like, I would love to be what you guys want me to be, but I didn't have everything that I needed, so I need to get a little bit of this too. So
Mm-hmm.
they were attempting to do the be the role model and then compensate for the things that they didn't necessarily have emotionally to fill in while they're being there for other people and being a crutch for other people emotionally. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So you can only give what you have in abundance. So that's the thing that I would expect, that a role model has to understand, that you can only give what you have in abundance, or else you're giving away a reserve that you might need, in emergencies. Like, you don't need, if you don't know it, I got this oil, it's an emergency reserve. Don't use that regularly, because when the emergency kicks in, you really, really might need that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And it's the same thing with people who are giving, or people who are there for community. It's like, all right, do you have that in abundance? How do you replenish yourself? Is somebody pouring into you? Do you have the things that you feel make you complete enough where you can be whole enough to actually give, right? Or is it everything transactional? And we be finding out that things be mostly transactional, that sometimes that they still are looking to get paid on the back end. You know what I'm saying? So people have figured out ways to even finesse the role of a role model. Um, Again, I would really want to consult to know if that's what a person intends to do, and then that requires for them to be under an intense review,
Mm-hmm.
right? Let me find out if that's something that you intend to do, and now you got to be under intense review to see if you actually live up to that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you never know. It's always going to come down to that, the decision making that that person is making every single day, because they could be doing one hell of a job and then wake up and just go off the deep end, and the people that are following them go over the cliff with them. I again, and I've seen these things happen. Um, that's why I said it's so important, that even with the people that we consider to be role models, are we checking in with them? Are we making sure that their cup is full? You know what I'm saying? How do they replenish themselves? How do they recharge themselves? Are they good at holding water? You feel me?
Yeah.
These are the things that I would want to know, while making that observation and making that decision. These are the prerequisites that you're gonna need to be effective, being holding space for other people, holding other people's secrets. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not easy.
Yeah. And like I said before, it's like you gotta be like and ignited in this, like, boom, boom, boom. Like you gotta be responsible,
Yeah,
respectable, and righteous. And
right.
those three
So
R's, those are the 3 R's I follow.
right. So it's like, what level of review, what level of observation, what level of inquiry does one have to go through before you gauge that a person is qualified in all three of those areas?
Mhm.
That deals with a lot of character development, and a person has to go through certain things, certain tests, to see if they are qualified, if they have that resolve to actually rise to that challenge. um so yeah, man, just I would pray that people see the title as role model as something worthwhile of their attention and their focus. I remember growing up, we used to have organizations such as, what was it called? Um, Brothers, what was it called? It was like a brothers mentorship type of situation.
Mhm.
Um, you
Like a
know,
like a boys and girls club type thing.
type thing. Yeah, it was
Okay.
something specific for men. We had something like that. You know, yeah,
We need more of that.
yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, black men need to be real with one another. We know what the problems are. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Other black men need other black men in a supportive role that is just non-judgmental. We know what we need. We need to rise to the occasion. We need to build the things that we need. I'm part of a brothers group here in Atlanta called Undungu. They meet on Tuesday nights out here. If anyone is in the metro Atlanta area, melanated men, and you hear this and you need somebody, that's an organization is very well vetted. Um, they're qualified. You know what I mean? You could pull up to one of them joints and meet community, and hopefully amongst community you can find men who are qualified for mentorship.
Yeah, yeah, mentorship. That's very important. Yeah, cause oh my god.
Yeah, it could get crazy. It could get crazy, man.
Mm, well, I won't give up on our people, no matter how bleak
No, no, never
it
that.
it, it is and how challenging it may be. But I just always feel like the potential was still there.
Always,
Yeah, just need a little bit of configuration, a little bit of reprogramming, and
always, y'all. These children are worthy. They're worth it. We have so many lights amongst us, so many geniuses that are untapped, that need your attention, that need your focus. Like I said, family, if you're outside, if you're in earshot of this information and you're hearing this, again, you can unlock the genius in the child just by being someone who's willing to listen. You can volunteer yourself for hours just to be that ear on the phone. Just to be like,
mm-hmm,
give 4 hours out of the week just to be an ear on the other end of that phone, because I know people want to ask questions. They want to be resourceful. They want to speak to somebody that's resourceful to ask questions, to help them, backboards to bounce their balls off of when they got to make decisions because they don't have men in their lives that are responsible enough. You know what I'm saying? To
mm-hmm,
help them fortify their spine and their backbone when it comes to decision making time. That's not asking too much of us. That's not asking too much of your time, black man. That's not asking for too much of your brain power, black man. You know what I'm saying? Let's tackle the stuff that's tackable,
mm-hmm.
and then we build from there. So I want to say thank you. You have reinvigorated, even my outlook into um 2026 and the things that I need to do to make myself, the the time that I need to put aside to be a available and viable resource like I'm speaking about. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey, that's what these conversations be about. I'm glad that I can, be a what would they call it? Like a not a vessel, but a spark, if you will. Yeah, a spark to, want to, you know, revitalize things and, act upon the things that you're thinking about and what you want to do. So,
So
but I want to say thanks again, Blue, for joining me on my platform. I got to get you back on here again. This is a very great conversation, and I do feel like somebody's life is going to be changed tonight.
that part,
So,
right?
appreciate you again. I got all the information in the description, so make sure y'all visit Blue's um link tree and
Yeah,
his fan base too as well. And all right, brother, I will talk to you soon.
absolutely. I appreciate you again. Thank you. Keep pressing forward, and I look forward to hearing the conversation between you and your parents. Please, for our mental health, we need to hear that. We need to hear a functional conversation with family where, as parents, they can speak about sometimes the very uncomfortable decisions and sacrifices that have to be made to maintain the mental health of the household, of the child, right? Of the developing mental um, childhood development. You know what I'm saying? What
Mhm.
goes into maintaining a child's mental fortitude where they're seeing love in the home and they're seeing people who care? That comes with sacrifice. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? So allow them to speak their piece, and I'm telling you, that'll be a catharsis for them and you. Um, and men need to hear this. You feel me?
yeah. So yeah, I'll definitely have that conversation with them, and then I'll definitely run that back with you, and we'll talk about it.
Yes,
So
sir.
all right, Blue. I see you. Peace. All right, family. Thank y'all for tuning in. Don't know when next time be on here, but when I will be on here again, I will let y'all know. But y'all have a good night. Peace.